Dozens of victims' family members filled a courtroom in Idaho today to see an alleged killer, Bryan Kohberger, for themselves. They watched as the judge asked how he pled to the charges against him, the murder of 4 University of Idaho college students. His answer? Silence.
Ms. Taylor, is Mr. Kohberger prepared to plead to these charges?
Your Honor, we will be standing silent.
Okay, because Mr. Kohberger is standing silent, I'm going to enter not guilty plea.
Prosecutors now have 60 days to determine whether to pursue the death penalty against Kohberger. This was the first time in months the public and the families had to see the man accused of the stabbing deaths that shocked the nation this past November. The trial is set to get underway October 2nd. It is expected to last 6 weeks. NewsNation's senior national correspondent Brian Entin has been covering this case from the very beginning. He was in the courtroom today and joins us live from Idaho. Bryan Kohberger stayed silent instead of entering a plea of guilty or not guilty. Why?
That's a very good question. I've been talking to attorneys here in Idaho. They all say that it is extremely unusual. Procedurally, it doesn't impact much because if he said not guilty, that's what would have been entered. If he didn't say anything, the judge automatically puts a not guilty verdict in for him, which is what happened. But we're trying to figure out why. What was the play here? Is it possible he plans to change his plea at some point and doesn't want to have to say that he is changing it and that he said one thing in the beginning and changed it? That's a possibility. We really don't know, though.
There was some speculation, I heard, that he might be reserving, or his lawyer might be reserving, the ability to plead some sort of mental defect, not guilty by reason of insanity. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not heard that. That's interesting. I will say this, though, Elizabeth. He was very attentive throughout court, and he answered all the judge's other questions. Yes and no answers, many of them. So it's not like he just stayed silent throughout the whole proceeding. He was clearly paying attention and very, very engaged with the judge.
How did he seem to you, Brian?
He seemed to me similar to when I saw him the 2 other times in person, one time in Pennsylvania, one time here in Idaho. Quiet, came in, maybe glanced for a second at the audience, but then just looked at the judge and his attorney. What you don't see in that video, Elizabeth, is just how small this courtroom is. It's very small, maybe holds 50 people tops. You had 25 family members in there on one side and then the media on the other side where I was sitting right behind Kohberger. So there was just sort of this tense, emotional feeling inside the courtroom because everyone was so close together, and you have to imagine what these families were thinking, really seated just feet away from the man accused of killing their loved one.
I cannot imagine. Was there any reaction from the families? I know they were directed by the judge to be quiet and not do anything like that, but what was the feeling in the room from them?
They were emotional. You could hear some crying even before he came in. It was interesting. Kaylee Gonzalez, one of the victims, her sister, Olivia, who last time I interviewed her was pregnant. Well, she's now had the baby, and she brought her baby to court, her newborn, which was just very emotional in its own way because you could sort of hear the baby cooing throughout the entire hearing. And at one point, Kaylee's mom went over to be with the baby, and you just really thought about all the different emotions and everything that this family has been through.
All right, Brian, thanks so much for that report.
Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.